Welcome to another episode with your host, Robert E. Hansen, psychic medium, author, and public speaker.
A Tale of the Buddha. Before the Buddha, the awakened one, had full realization, which took place according to legend under the Bodhi tree. The Bodhi tree is the name of the tree, the type of tree that historians suggest that the Buddha, Siddhartha, sat under in intense meditation and would not move from that location under this tree until he achieved supreme enlightenment. And according to all history and documentation, he became fully illuminated sitting under this particular tree. And if you were to visit India, you would actually see shrines built up around this location in honor of the great Buddha's life and his supreme enlightenment, which half of the world, the Buddhist culture, absolutely believes to be so. I want to talk to you about this a little bit, about what happened under that tree. And this is only, of course, what I've read, what I've sat in Zen communities and listened to as stories. And it's really a fascinating one, so I'd like to share it with you guys a little bit. When the Buddha finally left his mendicant world, mendicant, if you're not familiar with that lingo, that means when people go into an aesthetic life, they decide they're going to shed the world, they're going to pursue only enlightenment. There's a movement in certain religious sects and spiritual sects where they become a mendicant, meaning they walk around basically barefoot with a bit of linen on them, one cloak, one robe, and they have a begging bowl. It's just a simple little bowl in their hand, and they walk around and they pray for people and they stop and talk to people, and they have this bowl in their hand, but under no conditions are they allowed to ask for any food or any substance. They're not allowed to do that. It's a violation of their vows. But the people in that cultural time understood what they were doing, and quite frequently they would place fruit or some rice or perhaps some fish or something in the bowl to give sustenance to the mendicants. But the mendicants on the most extreme levels would not even carry a begging bowl. They would eat whatever they could off of the land in very small amounts. They would eat dead cockroaches, they would eat dead grasshoppers, they would take bark off of trees, they would drink only rainwater in the mud. It was called a super austere lifestyle. They would fast for days at a time. They would not take in any foods. These guys really, really worked very hard, punishing their bodies physically, emotionally, spiritually, under the belief by denying their physical being, they would somehow shatter the body and they would achieve enlightenment. And in the history of Buddhist studies, it has never happened. No one has ever become illuminated through acute suffering. No one. However, in the case of the Buddha, he lived like this for about 6 years. He lived in a very severe environment, physically, emotionally. He lived outdoors, no shelter from the storms, no shelter from the heat, no shelter from insects eating him, nothing. There was a comment made, and I was at a session one time, and there were photographs or statues of the Buddha. And most people see the Buddha as this big kind of pudgy guy with a happy face. Not in these images. These images, they showed the Buddha almost starved to death. They said that he was so hungry that you could see the bones of his spine through his stomach, meaning he was beyond emaciated, on the edge of death. He was starving himself to death, and yet enlightenment, illumination eluded him and everyone around him who was in a similar way. He was sitting by a river one day, and he began to realize And he claims, according to legend, that the river was speaking to him. Not in English or not in his dialect of tongue, but in a spiritual way, telling him, Siddhartha, the Buddha, get up, get up. You have it wrong. It is the middle path that you must pursue. There is a balance that you're not keeping. You are taking it too extreme to one side, and you're giving no thought or credit to the other side. And from that, the Buddha took his first bit of food in almost 6 years of a normal type of food. We believe it was a bowl of rice with some vegetables, and he really ate a meal for the first time in over 6 years. He finally rose up a bit healthier, a little more nutrition in his system, and he eventually kept on his pilgrimage, and he saw the Bodhi tree. Now, that tree was just a big tree before the Buddha's entry into the surroundings of this village, and he sat by this tree, directly under it. And in a state of deep, intense meditation, the demon called Maya, in the Christian culture we call it Satan, the devil, appeared to the Buddha. And the devil tempted the Buddha with ideas of gold, wealth. He offered the Buddha the whole world. He told Buddha he would do anything for him as long as the Buddha would bend the knee and admit that Maya was more powerful than enlightenment or sitting at the throne with God or coming to this place of complete freedom. And Maya tried to tempt the Buddha in every way he could. He even sent his 3 daughters to tempt the Buddha on a sexual level. And the Buddha never budged. And the Buddha stayed within his breath. The Buddha stayed in deep meditation. And Maya was going crazy. And eventually, though, Maya tried every trick in the book. It is said that Maya shot arrows at the Buddha to try to kill the Buddha. And as the arrows flew towards Buddha's heart, they turned into flowers and fell at the Buddha's feet. Finally, in desperation, Maya looks at the Buddha and says, okay, Buddha, I can't crack you, I can't break you. You have come to full enlightenment, but you're all by yourself. Who is going to know that you are enlightened? Who's going to know that you have awoken to the supreme ultimate enlightenment and that you are going to affect the world? No one is here to notice it. You're sitting by yourself under a tree. Who cares? And the Buddha smiled and spoke and put his 2 fingers into the earth. 2 fingers into the earth. And the Buddha said, according to scripture and according to legend, the whole universe will know. And at that moment, what is said was the ground began to shake, the trees began to shake, and the path of the Buddha's journey exploded into the world. And the Buddha gave birth, as another spiritual teacher gave birth, that love and being centered in the moment is the most powerful force that there is. I just wanted to share this Buddha tale with you guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Stay present as the Buddha did, and the life and the light of the world will be open to you too. Thank you for joining me.